Hello, Vikings fans. Welcome to Skol Nation Vikings Daily, your go-to source for everything Minnesota Vikings. We've got some exciting news to share with you today, so stick around because what I'm about to reveal could be a game changer for our beloved Vikings. Coming off a nail-biting 24-23 victory over the Raiders, head coach Kevin O'Connell had a lot to say in his post-game press conference. Sure, he praised the quarterbacks, Sam Darnold was efficient, and J.J. McCarthy's performance was labeled unbelievable. But what really caught my attention was his emphasis on the ground game. There's one stat in particular that O'Connell mentioned not once, but twice. It's a stat that just might signal a turning point for the Vikings as we head into the season. But before we dive into that, let me set the stage for you. The Vikings, as we all know, have been a pass-first team under O'Connell. But here's the thing. Moving the ball on the ground is something O'Connell really wants to see more of. And guess what? In the recent game against the Raiders, we saw just that. The Vikings turned 22 carries into 142 yards and a touchdown, which averages out to an impressive 6.5 yards per carry. Now, this is where things get interesting. O'Connell mentioned this specific stat as soon as he began addressing the media, and then he circled back to it later. Why? Because it's significant, and here's why you should care. Let's break it down. 5 different players carried the ball against the Raiders, but one name stood out: Kenny Nwangwu. He had 5 carries for 52 yards, including a spectacular touchdown run. For those keeping score at home, that's a whopping 10.4 yards per carry. This run wasn't just a fluke. It was the result of excellent blocking and Nwangwu's incredible speed. Once he broke through the initial defense, there was no stopping him. The offensive line and the receivers did their jobs perfectly, sealing off the Raiders' defenders and giving Nwangwu the space he needed to explode through the B gap. This is the kind of play that coaches dream about, and it's exactly what O'Connell has been working on during practice. But what about the other runners? Stay tuned because their contributions are equally important. Let's take a quick look at how our players performed on the ground against the Raiders. Kenny Nwangwu led the charge with an impressive 5 carries for 52 yards, including a touchdown. Ty Chandler also had a solid game with 7 carries for 33 yards, averaging 4.7 yards per carry. Myles Gaskin chipped in with 22 yards on 5 carries, and J.J. McCarthy added 18 yards on just 2 carries. Dwayne McBride, with 3 carries for 17 yards, rounded out the group. Each of these players brought something different to the table, and it's clear that the Vikings' ground game is starting to come together. What's even more exciting is that Aaron Jones, the newly acquired running back, didn't even play. Imagine what this backfield could look like when he's in the mix. Now here's where the curiosity gap comes into play. Last season, the Vikings ranked 28th in the NFL in rushing attempts, picking up just 1,553 yards on the ground and scoring only 7 rushing touchdowns. Those numbers put them near the bottom of the league, but the performance we saw against the Raiders could be the beginning of a new trend. If the Vikings can maintain this kind of efficiency in the run game, it's going to open up a world of possibilities for the offense. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but first let's take a closer look at what O'Connell had to say. In his own words, O'Connell was thrilled with the execution in the run game. He pointed out that the players took what they've been working on in practice and made it come to life on the field. No sacks, 6.5 yards per carry, and a touchdown to show for it. These are the kinds of stats that make a coach happy. But why does this matter so much? Because running the ball effectively makes life easier for whoever is under center. It keeps the defense honest, opens up play-action opportunities, and helps control the clock. All of these factors are crucial for a team that's looking to make a deep playoff run. But there's one more piece to this puzzle that we haven't discussed yet. You might be wondering, can the Vikings sustain this kind of success on the ground? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? The answer will depend on several factors, including how well the offensive line continues to gel, how the running backs perform as the season progresses, and how O'Connell balances the run-pass ratio. But here's the thing. If the Vikings can continue to run the ball like they did against the Raiders, it's going to make the entire offense more dynamic. And that's something every Vikings fan should be excited about. As we look ahead, keep your eyes on how O'Connell adjusts the game plan to incorporate more of this successful ground game. Will Nwangwu continue to shine? Will Chandler or Gaskin step up? And what about Aaron Jones? These are the questions that will define the Vikings season. and I'll be here to keep you updated every step of the way. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. What do you think about the Vikings' run game? Do you believe this is a sign of things to come, or is it too early to tell? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's get the conversation started. Don't forget to subscribe to Skol Nation Vikings Daily for all the latest news and updates. We'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in. Go Vikings!